welcome. I'm happy that lots of you made it on the last tekom day to my presentation. My name is Nils Bier. My presentation today is called Agile Content Development in Practice. And I want to introduce DocOps. It's an agile approach to generate technical content. First, some instructional words to myself. I have a bachelor's degree in technical communication. I studied at the University of Aalen. And during, before, and after my studies, I did multiple internships in tekom and worked for multiple technical documentation service providers on documentation projects. And as I not only wanted to be a tech writer, but also wanted to learn some more things, I decided to not become a ninja, but at least I did a master in electronic media at the Stuttgart Media University, and started at the same time working as working student for my current employer, K15T Software. So this was in 2011, and back in these days, the two founders just recently started the company, and we were only 5 employees, plus me as part-time working student. And I also wrote my master thesis at K15T Software, and I'm currently responsible as a product manager for our scroll add-ons, and so used by over 4,000 customers around the world. So I grew with the company, so it was a pretty exciting, or is still a pretty exciting experience. But back to the beginning. So in 2011, due to my technical writing background, one of my first tasks was to improve the existing documentation. And by then, there wasn't a real full-time tech writer working at K15T, so all those docs have been written by the developers themselves, so there were lots of improvements to make. And so at the end of the first or second day, my boss gave me a link to our to the documentation of the product, and asked me to improve and to work on the documentation. So, and at this startup days of K15T, I said we were only 5 people, or only 5 people plus me, so 5.5 people. And everyone was pretty heads down. Everyone had lots of things to do, lots of work on their plate, and so I needed to teach lots of the information myself, and either by just trying out the software or reading the existing docs. And compared to my previous experiences in technical writing, that wasn't that much a difference. There are always more important things to do for the subject matter experts, or at least they think so, than to explain features to technical writers. And I'm sure lots of you have made this experience before. The good thing was, at K15T Software, if I didn't find anything in the product docs and none of the developers had time, there was Rescue. There was an Oasis of information where all the company knowledge was stored. Confluence, our corporate wiki platform at K15T, our content Oasis, so to say. So if no one had an open ear for me, I just searched the wiki for specific terms and found at least enough information to get me started. So, and it was just one simple platform, and the whole company works and collaborates in. So all the knowledge was stored in this one system. And I haven't had this before in my previous jobs. Sometimes it even took weeks until I get access to what I thought all information or all platforms. So it even took weeks till I even got a computer or Wi-Fi or internet access. So plus lots of the information was hidden on hard disks of the subject matter experts or in their brains. And again, I'm sure lots of you still have this problem or have these problems, and it's not only a problem in technical writing or technical communication, but also one of the biggest problems in technical documentation, but also with corporate knowledge in general, the information silos. Every department has its own system or its own information silo, independent from each other. So there's the first silo, the tech doc, the know you, your authoring tool, the one you know best, and the one you're the boss in, so to say. There's also other departments storing useful information. For example, customer support. By dealing with customer problems and describing workarounds, they have lots of useful information for you as tech writers as well, but often stored in an own silo without any connection to the or any access for you to all those information. Then there's the developers, also with their own system, with their own knowledge inside their system, and yeah, probably hidden or without any access for you. And when it comes to documenting, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand does. So the longer I work for K15T, the more I'm happy to not have to work in such a silo environment where I don't know if there's any other system out there containing useful information. So instead, it's more like this. We have one single platform, one large place of content, and everything within one system with access for everybody by default. But of course, you can restrict relevant or internal information or department internal information, for example, HR information to a certain user group. So to not make it available throughout the company, because there might be information that shouldn't be shared with others. So there are ways to restrict this. And as in these shelves, if you have such one platform, you have to make sure to categorize the information to make it findable and into smaller units, and so to make it findable and find the relevant info as fast as possible. But the good thing is, it's only one platform you have to search in, and you can be sure that if you don't find anything inside this platform, there's nothing documented. And last year I stumbled over a blog post from Jim Turcotte from CA Technologies. It's a huge software company from the US, and he described a quite similar approach. He described an approach to developing content collaboratively within one single system. And he came up with a pretty cool term for that. He called it DocOps. And so with DocOps, finally, there was a catchy word for the approach we already did at K15T Software. And the central idea behind this is to collaboratively work on your technical content within one single system. And so it's all about collaboration, as Vanilla Ice mentioned in the early 90s. But where does this term come from, and what are the requirements to be able to embrace this approach and use it in your own company? So in the next remaining 25 minutes, I want to give you an overview on that, and I will talk how we internally at K15T Software collaborate on our docs, and how one of our largest customers, CA Technology, does it. So let's start with some theoretical stuff and introduce the term itself. DocOps has its origins in the term DevOps. DevOps is a compound word of the words development and operations. So DevOps became an established method in IT companies since it was first mentioned in 2009. And by now there are hundreds of definitions out there for DevOps. Who of you has already heard about that term? More than I thought. Cool, around the half of you. To get an overview or to get all of you to notice this term, I want to share a short 2-minute video about DevOps in a nutshell. And I hope this sound...
Today, every company is a software company. Software applications, including mobile apps, are becoming increasingly important for all businesses. In fact, if your applications fail, so does your company. No pressure, but your applications are the face of your business, and customers are expecting to get better apps faster. With conventional methods, development and operations often seem like they're speaking different languages, bogging down the process of delivering fantastic apps to the customer. These methods are no longer good enough. In the hyper-competitive application economy, you need a transformation. CA Technologies believes DevOps is the transformational strategy you should adopt. DevOps seeks to eliminate the clunkiness of the traditional relationship between development and operations. It allows companies to increase the speed of their application delivery without sacrificing the quality that customers expect. DevOps removes development constraints, implements automation, and creates a feedback loop from ops to dev. DevOps is a big change. It requires mindset and incentive changes across the enterprise, but it can be done. The organizations that have succeeded in implementing it have often seen huge improvements in their productivity and quality. If you want to keep your company on the cutting edge, DevOps is crucial. Visit ca.com/DevOps to learn more about implementing this winning strategy.
Yeah, so as the video tells, it's about blurring boundaries. It's about blurring boundaries between different departments, and specifically to blur the boundaries between the guys creating the product, so the development, and those guys deploying the application into production and look after it and keep it up and running, the operations team. And as said, this approach is very well established in the IT industry and has multiple advantages. Those advantages are mainly quality and time related. When doing DevOps, you have a faster time to market, shorter release cycles, and you have a lower failure rate of releases due to extensive testing and collaboration between the departments. And finally, faster fixes for upcoming bugs. So the result of this is that the overall software development process increases both in pace and the quality of the software improves. And as software becomes business critical from day to day, more and more companies are trying to embrace DevOps with all its advantages. But you might ask yourself, why always me? What has this to do with technical communication and technical content? As said before, business software becomes business more and more mission critical, and so does the content and the product documentation. And the content process has to keep the pace, and the information delivered with the software has to be up to date. All departments included in the product lifecycle need to speed up. So if there's a new release coming up, you as tech writers or you as tech writer departments, you don't want to be the bottleneck. You don't want to be responsible for a delayed release. Plus, you don't want to confuse your readers with outdated information and leading to a higher support effort. And so when your company already does DevOps or another Agile approach, the ecosystem around this development, or in other words, all included departments, need to be complete. And it was about time to move the concepts of DevOps to other parts of the business, or in our case, tekom, and the term DocOps was born. And again, there are multiple definitions for this term. Robert Kennedy from CA Technologies simply defined DocOps to be the kick-ass cousin of DevOps at last year's LavaCon in Portland. Or Jim Turcotte, also from CA Technologies, defined it to be a crowdsourced, single-source documentation in a central repository. So it's a collaborative approach of generating technical content within one single platform. And DocOps is also about blurring boundaries. It's to break the boundaries between the information silos. And of course, this can not only be done by implementing a specific tool set, it's more than that. So when you want to do DocOps, you need the right corporate culture. And sometimes cultural changes have to happen before DocOps can be used efficiently. Sharing is caring. As I said, it's all about sharing content and make the content available throughout the company, or at least within the departments within the involved departments. And so it's all about teamwork and shared responsibilities. And everyone interested in collaborating in the documentation process can and should contribute their knowledge. As said before, collaboration is key. DocOps is about collaborating and empathy. It's important to have teams from different departments working on certain topics and share their knowledge between between their departments. However, at the end, the responsibility for the documentation is still at the tech writer, and the subject matter experts somehow just act as content collaborators, and the tech writers are still the editors in chief. All involved people, especially support agents and tech writers, should work as a team and should help breaking boundaries between those departments. So together we can, or everyone can. And in a DocOps approach, it's about starting. The content doesn't need to be perfect at first glance. So it's better to have something than to have nothing at all. And for this, it's about lean processes and agile workflows. So as DocOps is the cousin of DevOps, though those methodologies, there are overlaps. And like in an agile software process, it's about retrospectives, about looking back, and about continuous improvements and iterations. And by doing that, the information is like a fine wine. It's getting better by time. So as you can see, it's not about technology. It's not the technology that's important when doing DocOps, or at least it's only a part of this transformation process. And the platform you are using, the single repository, it can be an enterprise wiki or any other tool. It only has to have 3 key functionalities. It should support the collaboration, for example, by having social features like share buttons to share content easily between different people, or have a content functionality to provide feedback. Plus, the platform should be accessible for all stakeholders. And finally, it should be easy to use to get everyone involved in this process. But as said, the technology can only assist. So if you don't have the right culture, those tools are just worthless. If no one in the company participates and shares their knowledge, those platforms will be just empty boxes without any useful information. So that's for the theoretical part. So let's now have a closer look at we internally live our DocOps approach. As said before, the company was founded 6 years ago, and we work in a highly agile environment. By now we have about 25 employees, and are pretty IT driven. So about 75% of the employees are basically software developers. There are still flat hierarchies, and everyone is used to work as a team. The concept of knowledge sharing is lived by everyone, and it's an open and collaborative way of working. So from a cultural point of view, there are perfect conditions. Currently, we have 11 products, the scroll add-ons that need to be documented. And as the whole product team works on these documents, we have around 10 to 12 active content contributors, including developers, product managers, and support agents. And all this information, as said, is stored within one single platform, which is available both internally, but also available for our customers, for the readers of our docs. As central platform or as content platform, we use Atlassian Confluence. It's an enterprise wiki or collaboration platform used by over 20,000 organizations worldwide. Who of you has heard about Confluence before? Great. So besides Confluence, we use the product team. We in the product team heavily use Zendesk. It's our help desk platform and basically the main communication between K15T and our customers is happening there. This can be both support requests, but also customer contact forms from our website are directly imported into Zendesk and managed there. Plus, we have Jira, a bug tracking tool where our developers used by our developers to work on the bugs, on feature requests and improvements. But we also use it for project management, for documentation tasks, for time tracking, and for leave requests, for example. So those are the three tools we use with Confluence as central content repository. And all those systems are perfectly integrated with each other, and everyone of the content team has access to it. So how does it work? If a customer has a problem, I said most of our communication happens through the support system. And if there's a customer having a problem and he can't find useful information in our docs, he creates a support request asking for help. This can be both questions regarding best practices, but also bug reports or any other problems or questions he has regarding one of our products. This request is then verified by the support agent, and if it's a bug and he can reproduce the problem and identifies it as a bug, he either directly creates a Jira ticket, or if it's a more complex problem, or the customer is asking for best practices, and this information could be product relevant, the support agent informs the customer that his request is received, and then discusses this question both with the developers or product managers or tech writers or whoever might be the right contact person. And as a result, either the support agent or the product manager or the tech writer creates a new knowledge base article in Confluence or extends the existing documentation by adding missing information to the published documentation. And when this knowledge base article is finished, the support agent sends the link to the customer and solves the support request. And as said, this knowledge article doesn't need to be perfect at first glance. It's more to initially help the customer, and by that, like, try to get the customer more into the documentation, so that he tries to help himself by first searching our docs. And as a consequence, we have a growing number of articles or FAQ entries in the knowledge base created from product support. The tech writer then checks those articles on a regular basis, reviews them, and improves and curates the content. He's still the responsible person for the docs, and he has to make sure that this knowledge base article or the docs constantly improves and has a certain quality. So if a knowledge base article is relevant for the product doc and needs more time to get worked on, the tech writer can create a documentation task, and this documentation task can then be scheduled or planned for the next product release. So once the new release or the new sprint is finished, the docs will then be updated within the next product release and are improved. And finally, after every release, the whole product team, including tech writer, does a retrospective. It's a meeting to discuss new articles, identify weaknesses in the product, and decide how to improve the product process and documentation. So they discuss solve documentation tasks, improvements, bug fixes in the latest version, newly generated help and knowledge base article, and try to improve the overall process. And by having this retrospectives, they constantly improve their collaboration. And the tech writer becomes a fully fledged team member of the whole product team, and they are actively involved in the overall product process. So they're involved in the roadmap and can provide feedback, and yeah, the product improves. So yeah, of course, we are still also improving this from release to release, and to improve both the product but also the documentation. And of course, there are still some support requests answered directly without any knowledge base article, but we're trying to keep this number as little as possible and yeah, try to get better on that. So yeah, this basically was the first example how we internally use or live our DocOps approach, and the next example is more like with a larger enterprise team. So who of you has like similar team sizes, having between 5 to 15 people involved in this documentation process? Okay, so more like enterprise-y teams. So this DocOps approach works for smaller teams like K15T, but also scales and works in an enterprise context. So my next example is DocOps at CA Technologies. As mentioned before, basically CA or Jim Turcotte and Bob Kennedy are kind of the fathers of DocOps. And CA is a large software enterprise from the US, and as I said in their video, their software became mission critical in more and more companies. So the information engineers is how tech writers at CA are internally called. They needed a more lightweight process or solution for generating their docs, for not being the bottleneck in this release process and not like holding up new releases. And before they had a really, really heavy-duty documentation system, and only the tech writers or the information engineers and trained tech writers were able to create and work on this content. And there was basically no collaboration in the system at all, and there wasn't any collaboration in between or with other departments. And consequently, they had duplicate content spread over multiple channels and platforms, which was both often inconsistent and outdated, and therefore confused their users. So the content somehow became like the ugly stepchild that no one wanted to play with. And so they needed a change, and the DocOps platform was born. And compared to K15T, the docs or the use case at CA is huge. They have over 300 products, leading to 25,000 documents in a range between 100 and 1,000 pages per document. All this content has to be translated to 20 languages, as they are like a global player and the software is used globally. They have 20 target languages and have over 300 contributors participating in this documentation process. And previously, I said all this information was stored on multiple platforms without having one single source of truth, both internally but also externally. And CA wanted to change that. So as they already developed their software in Agile DevOps way, from a cultural point of view, everything was ready. So they focused on their platform. And yeah, due to those numbers, compared to the previous example, they have more, or they have other requirements on their platform. They needed more and more enterprisey features. So how did they do it? The key requirement was to have a collaborative tool to give access to authors all over the enterprise, which they found again in Confluence. And on top of that, they extended the platform with our K15T scroll add-ons to have version variant control and to be able to create exports of their documentation in the wanted style and export format. Furthermore, as they have over 300 contributors, they wanted to make sure to have a constant style and quality of English. So they needed authoring assistance and terminology checks. And finally, I said 20 languages. They wanted to have a deep integration with their existing translation management system and their external translators. And all this information should be directly available online for the customer. And it is. Under wiki.ca.com, you can have a look at their really huge content platform. So finally, all customers and all internal stakeholders have one single system without the need of searching for multiple platforms. And as a consequence, they've highly improved the content quality. The readers are no longer confronted with outdated information or with multiple systems. And their content supply chain was no longer the bottleneck in this release process. And finally, they can keep the pace with the agile development. And with their new approach, they are way more agile. Their information engineers can now update docs within minutes instead of hours or days. So they can quickly react on documentation bugs and improve the documentation. By that, the doc is continuously updating, leading to more mature docs and content that is like a fine wine, getting better by time. It's finally a highly collaborative platform. The info engineers no longer act as siloed authors in their specific tool, but they can curate and improve the documentation from the other, or the information from the other content stakeholders, and work both closely with support agents to shut down knowledge articles in the product documentation. And as I said, still, tech writers are the chiefs of editing and have the responsibility over the docs. And finally, by breaking up their multiple information silos, they were able to aggregate content. They aggregated content and reduced the amount of words by 25%, which in this scale means by 3 million words just in the target language. And as a consequence, they dramatically decreased the translation costs. Yeah, I think those examples, or I hope that those examples showed pretty well what's possible when using the DocOps approach. More content stakeholders are actively involved in the creation process. The reputation and of the tech writer improves as he gets part of the product team and is not acting in his own information silo, and as also the content quality improves, and at the end, all this leads to more satisfied customers and readers. But of course, DocOps is no silver bullet. And only if the culture, the corporate culture, and the used technology fit together, it can really help increasing the content quality. One more thing. Have a new Apple Watch? No. Yeah, I hope I was able to give you an overview about the DocOps approach, and now it's on you to decide if that might be an option for your company processes and your culture. And as feedback is very important, I would like you to ask to give me and the tekom organizers feedback to my talk, to my session. And yeah, feel free to either hear this QR code or directly under this URL to give me your open feedback, both positive and negative. Some sources. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.